Hi everyone and welcome to Indie Flix. This is the show where we spotlight you, the local independent filmmaker. I'm Dan Monroe. Joining me today is Peter John Ross of sonnyboo Productions. Thanks for joining us, Pete.
Hello.
Tell me a bit about yourself. When did this bug attack for you to start producing movies?
I was working as a broker for a giant multinational bank in Columbus, Ohio. I started writing screenplays. I was originally, my whole life had been spent wanting to do music for movies because I was a musician. And I finally got my chance in a movie that was produced in Akron, Ohio. Mm-hmm. And they sent me a copy of the movie, and I watched it and I said, I can do better than that. But it was different because everybody says that. Maybe 1 in 1,000 or 1 in 10,000 actually tries. And I've spent the last 8 years trying, and I don't know if I have or haven't, but I've been trying.
But you've had a lot of fun along the way, I bet.
Yeah, I really feel like I'm a much more successful filmmaker than I ever was musician.
Mm-hmm. What was the first piece you actually started working on?
I did 6 things back to back. Because at the time, and this is in January of 2000, I had just met the writer-director Richard Linklater. He came to Ohio State University and did a speaking thing, and I got to talk with him afterwards. And it was hugely inspiring to meet one of your idols and really like what he has to say and what he's like in person. And one of the things that worried me at the time was things like poor Wes Craven, who, even though he has interest in things other than horror films, he's only known for horror films because what's his first success? A horror film. So when I did my first 6 short films, I wanted them each to be more or less of a slightly different genre. Even though 4 of them were comedy, they were radically different types of comedy. So I did one action piece, kind of an Ally McBeal type comedy, one that's very dry, raw comedy, another one that was very sitcom type comedy. Then another one that was straight up drama. I just kind of went, and another one that was really gross. I just went in all these different directions, and I wrote them all and shot them all in the next several weeks, and started putting them out.
Well, after doing the first 6 pieces, what did you learn that changed the way you made these movies going forward?
Number 1, work with a cameraman, because I wasn't very good at. I did one of them. I shot it myself, and I vowed never to do that again. Because I've always worked with cinematographers, or camera people, anybody other than myself to do it. The other thing I learned from the very first one, that was actually number 6, was not to use friends, but to actually use actors. Those are the 2 biggest lessons I learned from the first 6 that I did.
How were those first 6 treated when I'm sure you sent them somewhere. Did you show them anywhere?
Pretty much, this was riding the crest of the very beginning of internet video. They were on something like 27 different websites, only 2 of which are alive today. Undergroundfilm.com and ifilm.com. And ifilm no longer, I think they have 1 of the movies now, and they dropped the rest years ago. But Underground Film still has the original edits of the original movies as they were. It was very interesting because right out of the gate, within a couple days of making the movies, I got my first harsh criticism. Pretty brutal criticism, actually. I mean, and that's where I really figured out about criticism, which is, everybody's got an opinion. Their opinion isn't really wrong just because you disagree with it, and that's okay.
But most people would throw it away and say, that's it, I'm horrible, I can't do this. What made you go forward? What made you move on?
I liked the movies. I mean, I even after reading what somebody had said, it didn't really change my opinion about what I liked and what I already didn't like, about what I wanted to do better the next time. So it didn't really change anything for me. And there were more people that liked it than didn't in most cases. So you just really got to take the good and not worry about the bad.
What'd you work on next?
After that, I went way too ambitious and made the biggest mistake of anything I've done with filmmaking. I went for a 46-minute-long sci-fi epic way before I was ready, technologically, experience-wise, as a director. I definitely overreached, and I learned all of the most important lessons of what not to do. I learned more on that piece than anything else. It's
what was that?
Bane of my existence.
What movie?
It was just called New World.
New World?
was basically like a Japanese anime, but done as live action with mini DV. I shot it basically 2 or 3 weeks after I got fired as a broker. I started working on this and started shooting it and spent 2 years editing it with all the visual effects that were in it.
Well, what were some of the roadblocks you encountered?
Working with a cinematographer that was a frustrated director, working with, winding up producing it and directing it and everything that goes into the organization. I didn't focus in any way, shape, or form on the job of actually directing. I barely got to work with the actors because there was so much to do. I barely could find the energy to fight the cinematographer about what he wanted versus what I wanted. And it wound up being just a big garbled mess. Plus, just the experience level of a lot of times I have characters telling you things that you wind up either showing them or things you should show and not have them talk about.
Exactly.
Film is a show-me medium, not a tell-me medium. Having actors there telling you a story is only interesting if they're really, really famous people.
I think one thing, too, you have to develop a team, a crew of people that you trust and you work well together. Have you developed that team?
Yeah, I definitely have. I tend to work with the same people. There are people from New World that I still work with today. Several people, actually.
Okay. Moving on to a movie you did called The Quarry.
That was one of the original 6.
That was one of the original 6. We do have a clip about it, of The Quarry. I want to show it now, and then when we come back, we'll talk a bit about it and talk some more technical aspects.
Sure.
Okay? Let's take a look at The Quarry.
Damn it, are you okay?
Peter, what type of format do you like to shoot on?
I love film. I love shooting actual celluloid. I mean, I've shot Super 8, 16 millimeter, Super 16, 35 millimeter. I also shoot video. I've done standard def, HD, HDV. They're all good to me. I mean, I like them all. I'm not a film snob, nor am I I'm not someone that's going to get into that film versus video debate. I mean, in this day and age with progressive video and 24p video, it's about the look. I'll never forget one of the things that Richard Linklater said to me that night, which is more important to you, owning film stock or telling a story. At this point, video is no longer an inhibitor in making it look like a narrative piece. I mean, the psychology of viewers is always that video look cheap, or video, is real. That's why reality shows, talk shows, and the news always had that interlaced video look. So when you're trying to tell a narrative in that format, people would get confused. But now you have all these other options you never had before with progressive video and just the different filters you can use. And, if it's well lit and done in a cinematic way, it doesn't matter what you shot on.
Yeah.
It's about the story.
Yeah. I think a lot of young independent filmmakers out there are excited by the concept of shooting something that looks cool, but they leave out minor details, not so minor, like audio, like lighting. How do you respond to that?
I think sound is 50% of the experience of any movie. And it can't be emphasized enough how good audio should be. Shooting on set, really, sound that you're collecting really is just dialogue. And even then, you could ADR, or automated dialogue replacement, or also called additional dialogue recording. You could ADR it later if you have to. and make it work. As a matter of fact, ADR can really save your butt. You can go in with ADR, and during coverage, when you can't see someone's lips, you can change the lines and change the story.
Really?
After the edit, at the cost of recording the sound again. So I've personally used that on several occasions to change my mind or enhance the story. And so sound is such a powerful tool, and that's not even getting into the concepts of sound design, which is kind of the more modernized version. Really, in the 80s, you started pioneering it with people like David Lynch, using sounds to emphasize a camera move or anything like that. Things that used to be considered a mistake, like a whip pan, you do it now with no sound, it feels like a mistake. Put a sound effect of a whew to the camera moving really fast, suddenly it's style.
Exactly.
So, sound design is a part of that, but then there's just ambient sound, there's Foley, all the things you would need to do. And if you're making a feature or even a short film that's looking at any kind of international distribution, creating the M&E, or music and effects track, is essential. It's something that, probably 90% of independent filmmakers don't realize till way after they're done, and then they try to sell it to a foreign country. They're like, where's the M&E track? And they don't even know what it is, nonetheless have one.
Yeah. But I guess on the flip side of that coin, the young filmmakers just starting out, a lot of them working with a budget of pennies, if that. They don't have that yet. So how do you build that up? Did you have all the audio and special effects when you first started making your movies?
Well, audio, not a little bit of special effects, but not a lot of special effects or visual effects. What we did for audio is I'd always had a boom mic, or at least a very good shotgun mic. Never used the onboard mic. That's a terrible, terrible way to record. Nowadays, what I use the lavalier mics, the little clip-on mics, whether they're wired or wireless, depending on the situation. In a lot of ways today, I'll combine a boom mic sound with the lavaliers to try to cover everything. And there's always the importance of recording at least 60 seconds of room tone, or just what is allegedly silence. Because it's amazing when you record silence how different rooms and different locations actually sound.
Right.
You can create a soundtrack from that.
Where do you get your crew from, or where do you get your actors from? How do you pull these people together?
Well, at this stage, I just have a core group of people I can rely on. Like for crew, I've been working with a lot of the same people for years, and I've been working with people for 8 years that I still work with. It's not that hard for me to find crew, and if there's any specialized thing, the networking is so ingrained at this point that I'm like 2 phone calls away from anything I need. In terms of actors, there's again a core group of people I've worked with for years, but then there's also all kinds of acting teachers, acting coaches, and talent agencies that if I call them, they're going to treat me different than someone who's never made a movie before, because over 8 years I've been able to demonstrate that I'm serious, that what I do gets seen. There's I don't know if reputation's the right word, but it's just there's a level of seriousness to being a professional and being recognized for it.
And then create that name for yourself.
Exactly.
What do you do when you're not producing films, making films?
I still work production. I either am shooting commercials or editing commercial work or editing on someone else's feature film or documentary or TV shows. And I do freelance, but I'm also working for a production company I'm a part of called Production Partners. And so for the last year, I've been working very steady on TV spots, TV shows, commercials, and documentary.
As a director, who are your influences?
Biggest influences are probably people like, I love Spielberg, Kubrick, even George Lucas, much flack as he gets. I love George Lucas' stuff. Even his stuff he's directed, I think he's got some good ideas and some bad ideas. Peter Jackson is a huge influence. Definitely Neil LaBute, who's a lesser-known guy out of Indiana, but he's done several decent movies. He had the biggest, most profound effect on me, being that his ability to manipulate the audience and just the total control he has over people's feelings with what he's written and directed is unbelievable. And it's had the biggest single effect on me of any other director.
Not only are you a director, you're also somewhat of an author.
Yeah.
What do you have out there? What's going on?
Well, I got two things out there. The illustrated screenplay for my first feature, Horrors of War, is available on Amazon.com, but also I wrote a book called Tales from the Front Line of Indie Filmmaking and Other Assorted Tips. That's being distributed by Amazon.com right now. It's a book with half of it is articles I've written for various magazines and websites about filmmaking. Really, they're tips for beginners. The other half of it is kind of just stories of the wackiness and craziness in the independent film world and the micro cinema world for the people with budgets of tens of dollars. Just it's kind of the adventures of the crazy people you deal with. And then the last third of it, though, is really my journal of how I went from making short films to making a feature film with a budget.
You go nonstop, don't you? Or at least you try to.
I don't sleep a lot at night.
You shouldn't. You mentioned it. We never had that much of a chance to touch on it, but Horrors of War. That's available out there, isn't it?
Yeah, that's my first feature. Got released by Maverick Entertainment, and it's on shelves at Blockbuster all over the U.S. It's been released in Japan, Germany, Belgium, Netherlands, Luxembourg, Poland, Thailand, a few other countries. I think a couple in the Middle East even. I get emails about bootlegs being available in South America that we haven't even sold territories to, but I have copies from each country, and it's hilarious to watch it in Japanese. To watch it dubbed in Japanese was quite an experience, and even dubbed in German is funny, but Japanese was the funniest because you have like a 60-year-old guy doing the voice of one of our 22-year-olds, and it just doesn't fit, but it's really funny. It's Horrors of War is a World War II Nazi zombie werewolf movie. It was heavily influenced from when I grew up in Wadsworth, Ohio, and watching the Superhost on WAB.
Absolutely, Superhost.
I mean, that was, every Saturday after the cartoons, you'd be, 4 hours of King Kong or Sinbad or John Wayne World War II movies, and this really is a melding of all of those movies and big influence of what my Saturday morning was like. I mean, we made it to be a B movie in that tradition, in that style. And we get interesting criticism of the movie for that being a lot of people don't get that. And we made this, we shot it a year and a half before Grindhouse had even been shot. And, I'm a huge fan of that stuff. I never heard the term Grindhouse. I always thought it was a B-movie theater, and the B-movie idea is what I'd always heard. And that's the kind of movie we made. If you watch Planet Terror, it's that style of movie. Very much so. That's what Horrors of War is and what it was supposed to be. And some people either get it or they don't get it. A lot of people are not going to be fans of that genre. Or they're only going to be fans with it if, the guy from Lost is in it with a bunch of other... Actually, two guys from Lost now.
Naveen Anderson and...
Naveen Anderson and now the helicopter pilot.
Jeff Fahey. Jeff Fahey, the Lawnmower Man.
B-movie icon. Straight-to-video king, Jeff Fahey.
Yes.
Love Jeff Fahey.
Well, Peter, we're running out of time, but tell me a bit about Sonnyboo. If people want to contact you at Sonnyboo, maybe are you looking for people to maybe join the crew or be actors, or?
Well, I mean, I have a forum on Sonnyboo, which is sonnyboo.com. I have a forum on there that has casting notices from me and from other directors all over the state. Post their casting notices on the site, and there's filmmaker tips. There's some of the articles I've written. For filmmakers, there's a whole movie maker download section on sonnyboo.com, which is probably what my site and the name Sonnyboo is most famous for. Is there's 20 royalty-free songs that people can use in their productions of any kind for free, never having to pay me anything anytime. There's downloads of things, forms for production, release forms, location agreements, storyboard templates, images that have like the color bars and things like that, even a countdown leader, because I found out Avid doesn't get a countdown leader for free with the program, so a lot of Avid users go to my site to download a QuickTime MOV of the SMPTE countdown leader, and that's what brings me literally millions of individual hits a month, is all the stuff I'm offering to filmmakers for nothing. And it's all the stuff I wish I had had when I first started. So it's all out there, and that's what the site's for.
Peter, I want to thank you for being on the show. Very interesting. Great to hear about the work you're doing. You'll have to come back. You'll definitely have to come back. Peter John Ross, Sonnyboo Productions. Check it out, sonnyboo.com. You've been watching Indie Flicks. I'm Dan Monroe. We'll see you next time.